Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Chapter 6, Lesson 8. This is all about looking at two-step inequalities. So when we're looking at two-step inequalities, what we want to do is we want to solve them exactly the same as when we're dealing with two-step equations. So let's get started here. In example 1, it says solve 2x plus 1 is less than 11. Now, when we were looking at this, we did this with reverse PEMDAS. So I'm going to write that down. I'm going to square out the AS and the MD here, simply because those two kind of work together. So A and S, addition and subtraction, work at the same time. Multiplication and division also work at the same time. Now, when we did this, we wanted to work backwards in this direction here. So we wanted to look to see if there was any addition or subtraction first. And in fact, there is. We have a plus 1 right here. So I'm going to draw the line down the middle. And in order to get rid of that plus 1, I'm going to subtract 1. I'm going to undo it. Creates a 0 pair. I'm left with 2x. On the right-hand side here, I have 11 minus 1, which is 10. And I'm going to keep the inequality symbol. So now this section is done. Next, what I'm going to look at is looking at multiplication and division. So I'm going to look here at my inequality. I do have multiplication. This is 2 times x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to undo that. So this here simplifies to just x. On the right-hand side, we have 5 is what it simplifies down to, and I keep my inequality symbol. Now, when I start graphing this, we always want to look at a number line. And if you recall, when we're graphing, we always want to have this number kind of be in the center, because that's my starting point. Because this is simply going to be x is less than 5, I'm going to have an open circle here at 5, because it cannot be 5. And a way to check direction of the arrow, I'm going to say that let x be 0. So 0 is less than 5. Remember, if this is true, we want to point the arrow in that direction. If it's not true, we want to point it in the opposite direction. In this case, 0 is less than 5. So we want to move it towards 0, which happens to be in this direction here. Alright, let's look at our next example here. Example 2. It says solve 8 plus 3x is greater than 14. So I'm going to write reverse PEMDAS again. Square off those two steps. And I want to look at addition and subtraction first. Now this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because normally our variable is written first and other terms are written second. In this case, it's the opposite. But don't get concerned or confused, because this here, this is a positive 8, which really means I'm adding it. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Forgot to draw my line. So I undid that adding 8 by subtracting 8, and I'm left with just 3x. Over on the right-hand side, I have 14 minus 8, which is 6. And I bring down the inequality symbol. So I'm now done with this step here. I want to look at M and D now. So multiplication and division. I have multiplication. This is 3 times x. So in order to undo that, I want to divide by 3. Simplifies down to x and 2. And x is greater than 2, bringing down this symbol. Now, when I graph this, put on a number line. I have 2. Moving to the right, I'm going to go 3 and 4. To the left, I have 1 and 0. Again, I want to let x be 0, because right now I'm at 2. It's an open circle because I'm going to have it's just greater than 2. I want to say, is 0 greater than 2? Fortunately, that's not true, so I want to point my arrow away from 0. 0 is over here, so I'm going to go over in this direction away from it. Alright, let's start looking at some more difficult examples. So here's another one. We're going to write down PEMDAS, just like we have been doing. I'm going to square off those two. And we're going to start solving this one. Addition or subtraction? This is being added, so this is addition. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. To undo that. Now, this minus sign is still part of this 3x, so I want to keep it with it. And 9 minus 6 is 3. Bring the inequality symbol down as well. Next step, I want to start looking at multiplication or division. And right here, I'm multiplying by a negative 3. So to undo that, I'm going to divide by a negative 3. This simplifies to just x. 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. And keep in mind, here we are dividing by a negative number, which means this inequality symbol needs to flip. Last part of this problem, I need to graph this. So I'm going to start at negative 1 in the middle. Moving to the right, I have 0 and 1. To the left, I have negative 2 and negative 3. I have greater than or equal to, which means I'm going to have a closed circle, a dot at negative 1. I want to check which way my arrow is going, so I'm going to say that x is going to be 0, and I want to see if this is true. In this case, it is true. 0 is greater than or equal to negative 1. So I want to point in the direction of 0, which happens to be the right way. And then last but not least, I want to solve this one here. Excuse me. Again, write down PEMDAS. Square off those two sections because that is going to be dealing with the same step. All right. I have addition. It's right here, being added by 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides to undo that plus 3. So I'm left with x divided by 4. 7 minus 3 just happens to be 4. And I'm going to keep the inequality symbol moving down. Now you might be saying, but we subtracted. Here's a negative number. Shouldn't that inequality switch? That only deals with switching when we are dividing or multiplying by a negative number. Here we're adding and subtracting, and that's okay. Next process though, we have division. This is x divided by 4. So to undo that, I'm going to multiply by 4. Same thing on the right side. This right here simplifies to just x. On the right hand side, 4 times 4 is 16. And because I did not divide or multiply by a negative number, this is a positive number, I'm going to keep this symbol the same way. Last but not least, it does say to graph, so I'm going to graph this. Put 16 in the middle. Moving to the right, I have 17 and 18. To the left, I have 15 and 14. Now, this is an inequality symbol dealing with greater than or equal to, which means that at 16, I'm going to put a dot. In order to determine what this is going to look like, I'm going to want to let x be 0. So now I have 0 is greater than or equal to 16. And unfortunately, this is not true. So I'm going to point my arrow away from 0. 0 is over in this direction here. So I'm going to have my arrow pointing this way. And that is the end of lesson 8. If you have any questions, please let me know.